What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today I'm going over the biggest bits of news we've seen over the last week and just briefly touch on some players that have seen their ADP change the most. Remember, I have to record these videos obviously the day before uploading, so any news that comes out around like 10 a.m. on Friday, not going to be included in this one. You can ask any questions you have. Something big happens Friday afternoon, you can ask it during the Tuesday night live stream, but if it's important enough, I'm going to bring it up anyways, or we'll just talk about it some other video next week. So let's start off with the latest news, and then we'll transition into ADP changes, which also relates to news. Robert Woods, reportedly the recovery is going really well. There's no update yet on exactly when he's going to return, but he seems like he'll be good to go in camp. Seems like he'll be perfectly fine for week one. This is really good news just because it's always concerning when anyone comes off a torn ACL, but we're generally less concerned when you're like 24, 25, 26 years old. When a player's 30, like Robert Woods, there are more factors. There's more of a chance that he's not going to look the same, not going to be as explosive, not going to recover as well. And so while we don't know all those, we don't really know yet. Like, he can be healthy but not as explosive. We can get a general idea. Like, if the recovery is going really well, it should mean he'll be good to go. But yeah, I will just watch this one over the summer. As of right now, I think this is like really positive news for Woods, especially because it's only Treylon Burks. He doesn't have all that much competition. There's another rookie, Phillips, that like looks good, but in general, like there's not that much target competition on this team. So if he looks good, he could be really fantasy relevant this season. Coming off the boards, wide receiver 48 right now. I think if he is healthy, if he looks like the old Robert Woods, we'll probably see that rise into like the wide receiver 40 range. Maybe it goes into like the upper 30s, but I would expect his ADP to slowly rise from here. There was a report from The Athletic that Saquon could catch a ton of passes in this new Giants offense. This is an idea we've talked about plenty so far this offseason, but you know, the Giants are going to be a more efficient passing attack. They are going to throw the ball at just a higher rate in general, and they're going to be extremely fantasy friendly, and that's obviously good news for Saquon. You'd much rather have a target than a carry for Saquon Barkley. I'm not, fully willing to trust him, but you have to admit, like, we're getting him at a discount, right? Because think about it, I mean, like, just a few years ago, like, him and McCaffrey were coming off the board as like the top picks in the draft, right? And now, after missing 2 seasons, McCaffrey is still going second overall. Saquon has, he missed 2 years ago. He played 13 games last season, but he didn't look that great. He wasn't like 100%, but he's going much later. He's going as like the 14th running back off the board. So I understand when people are saying that like you're getting him at a discount, this might be a really good value. Obviously, we need to understand that like there's a reason for that. Like, McCaffrey is going second because every time he stepped on the field healthy, he's a top 3 running back. We saw Saquon return last season and not look good, right? But he's still obviously an incredible talent. He has plenty of upside. Like, if he went out there and he was, a top 3 running back, no one would be all that surprised. You'd be like, oh, I guess that makes sense, right? It's not like he's 30 years old now. He's still relatively young. This is a better offense, more opportunities, a lot of pass catching opportunities. Makes sense. Now, I still don't have him as value. I think right now I like my ranking as him with the running back 16. So he'd need to fall a few spots. But one interesting note is that my risk model, you guys know I have that attached to the rankings, it grades him out as the 18th least risky running back, I guess. So there's only 17 running backs less risky than him. I thought that he would be a much bigger risk. I thought that he would be maybe the 30s or 40s this season. So I don't know. Take that for what it's worth, but not as risky as I thought that he would be. Still not a pick that I'm going after again. I have him 2 spots overvalued right now, but he could easily fall. And so I don't think I'm avoiding him as much as I was earlier in the summer. Irv Smith looks close to 100%. He should be fully cleared by camp. If you guys remember last season, we really, really liked him. But then, of course, he injures the knee right before the season starts. But I guess it was good timing for this season, right? You'd prefer for this year that he injured it as early as possible in the season, right? You don't want him injuring it in week 17. You want him injuring it, right before week 1. So he should be good to go. They let Conklin walk in free agency. His biggest competition is Johnny Munt. So it's like, he's set up to have a really nice season. It is pretty easy to see him carving out a nice role in the passing attack. He'll obviously be behind Thielen, behind Justin Jefferson, behind Dalvin Cook, but at least in like usage behind Dalvin Cook. But after that, I mean, it's not crazy to think if he's the 4th option in this passing attack, and a passing attack that we think will be better this season and utilized more and like a higher frequency, he could post tight end 1 numbers. Now, do I think he'll be top 5? No, but I think he's a solid pick where he's going right now, which is like a high end 2. Todd Bowles said in talking about Godwin that he's better than where he was, but he's not where he needs to be, and they don't have a timetable on it. So not the best of news, but we're still really early. The season's like 3-4 months away from starting. He's still got a long time to rehab, but I have moved his target share down, his touchdown share down just a tad because I think it's, a little bit more likely now, kind of hearing these reports that maybe he's not 100% week 1. I don't think he's going to miss a lot of time. I don't think that they would have done like as little as they did in bringing people in this offseason, the receiving game, if they felt that he was a risk of like starting the season really slowly. But I think we're going to hear more in like June, in July, in August. And so we're going to have a really good idea come the end of summer. But as of right now, I did move him down a little bit. Sticking with the Bucs, their running back coach kind of poo-pooed Leonard Fournette's route running a little bit, basically saying that like he ad-libs a lot, which is fine, and it can be really beneficial to ad-lib a route when you see what's open in the defense, and if you're on the same page as Brady, that can be a really good thing, so it's not a total negative. But he said it puts him in the wrong place at the wrong time a lot, and so it can also be a bad thing, right? Especially when Brady really values consistency, really values knowing exactly where you're going to be. If you're not there, it frustrates him, right? So combine that with the fact that current reports are that Rachaad White looks just as advertised in the receiving game, that he looks good, that we know he's going to be good on the ground as well. And I have not changed my viewpoint on these two. I think Fournette is going to have a really good year, but is slightly overvalued right now because I think Rachaad White is good. I think Rachaad White will take carries and take a ton of targets, and that's going to make Fournette less valuable than it seems. And I think it makes White a fantastic pick where he's going, which is around that like running back 40 range, because if Fournette got hurt, I think he has a running back 1 ceiling. On to the ADP changes, which again, like I said, are also related to news. Jarvis Landry up 20 spots into the 12th round. That is what happens when you get signed, right? He's going to join Chris Olave and Michael Thomas in New Orleans, which is a fine landing spot. A lot of people have asked about this one, and it's kind of just tough to really know right now. Like, if Michael Thomas is healthy, and we know that Kamara is healthy, and we know that they love Chris Olave, he's at best, talking about Landry here, the 4th option in the receiving game on a team that is probably going to run the ball a decent amount, obviously going to be less explosive than they were with Drew Brees. I think Winston's fine, but there's a ceiling to this offense. And so I wouldn't love him if that was the scenario. He just probably would not be fantasy relevant because he just doesn't get that many targets deep downfield and doesn't get used that much in the red zone. But if, current reports are that Thomas is not fully healthy, and it's been like 2 years since he injured the ankle, so that's very concerning. And if he's not going to be as much a factor this season, now you're like, oh, okay, well, all they really have is Olave. Maybe he actually can carve out a decent target share, and he can be relatively fantasy relevant. So I think his ADP rise is warranted. I think the 12th round is a totally fine spot to take him. It's really just going to depend on Michael Thomas, and as of right now, we don't know yet, so it's tough to truly value him. I think, again, fine in the 12th round. Jalen Tolbert up 13 spots into the 14th round. I don't believe we've gotten a big update on Michael Thomas's recovery, just basically that people are starting to understand, like, did I say Michael Thomas there? Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup's recovery. I think people are basically starting to understand that there is a chance he's not good to go to start the season. And if that happens, well, Tolbert's a talented rookie, and all they really have is CeeDee Lamb and then like James Washington, right? Because they got rid of Amari Cooper. They got rid of Cedric Wilson. Like, this is a good offense still. They're going to throw the ball. They're going to be efficient in the passing game. So if we get a few weeks with Tolbert as the number 2, and what if he looks good, right? What if he just like immediately just has a large role and just keeps it, right? Because he's gaining these targets or commanding these targets. Now, I don't think there's a world where he overtakes CeeDee Lamb. I don't really think while Gallup's health is a world where Tolbert overtakes him, but there's at least a chance he can carve out an okay role. And so I think in the 14th round, that's totally fine. So I think the rise in ADP makes sense. An unfortunate rise in ADP is Mike Williams, up another 6 spots into the early 4th round. We talked about him last week. We talked about him 2 weeks ago, and just like he was the most undervalued wide receiver in drafts. Unfortunately, that is not the case anymore because he keeps going up in ADP. I don't really expect his ADP to drop either because he's like the starting outside wide receiver on one of the best teams in football. So Not many cases against him, which is why it's tough to see the ADP dropping too much. But the rise makes sense. I now have him as like appropriately valued, so you can still take him at his current ADP. He's not a huge value, so we're not like reaching for him. And he could still drop in, drafts, fallen drafts, to where he's a really good value for you in your individual draft. But unfortunately, he's not like the biggest value in drafts anymore. Dameon Pierce continues to rise in ADP, up another 6 spots into the 10th round. This is what I talked about a few weeks ago, right? Everybody has the exact same take when it comes to Pierce. They're just basically being like, oh, look, the Texans depth chart is bad. He's going to be like a featured running back, and that's valuable. But remember, he was a 4th round pick. He's on the Texans. He was not used very much in the receiving game in college. He combined for under 1,400 rushing yards in his 3-year college career. That's not great. He maxed out at 574 rushing yards through 13 games last season. That's not all that good. His best game ever in college was 87 rushing yards back in 2018. Best last season was 78. And then he goes in the 4th round to the Texans, and all of a sudden everyone wants to jump on him in the 10th round. To me, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know why his ADP keeps going up, but it was basically, I think, what I talked about. Everyone is the exact same take. And so all you hear is, oh, well, he could easily be the one. And people just take him earlier and earlier. And it's like, I don't see how that's warranted. It's the 10th round of a redraft league. And we're taking a running back who has never hit 90 rushing yards in college, was used very little in the receiving game, and again is on the Texans. I don't love it. Another one, Miles Sanders. He's seen his ADP go up 5 more spots, being taken in the mid-7th round now. I still think it's a few rounds too late. I think the Eagles are going to be very good. I think that while they're going to throw the ball more, that's not even terrible news for Miles Sanders. He'll get plenty on the ground. He'll get receptions. He got super unlucky with touchdowns last season. He'll get plenty of touchdowns on average. I don't know. I think he's a good player. I think he's the best running back. I think that it's ridiculous that he's still going in the 7th round, so keep capitalizing on that. In terms of ADP decreases, Mostert had the biggest fall. He's down 10 spots in the 14th round. I don't think this is related to Sony Michel. I don't think people really value Sony Michel that highly. I don't know if Sony Michel is even going to make the team. I think it's more just that, there are still question marks around his health. We don't know if he's going to be healthy in week 1. Not ideal for a 30-year-old running back, especially one that has topped out maximum of 137 carries in his career, part of an ambiguous backfield, changing teams. There are a lot of factors going against him. Doesn't catch the ball that much. I took him super late in an underdog draft. I think maybe I'm done taking him late. I think until my exposure gets very thin on him, I'm probably good. He's going to the 14th round again. That's fine. You're not expecting that pick to work out anyways, but he should probably just be the last running back on your roster, and there might be better options, to be completely honest. George Pickens, also seen his ADP drop 8 spots now into the 13th round. A lot of you have also asked about Pickens. I'm just not a huge fan, even at his new ADP. Definitely wasn't before. Still not a great fan. It's not terrible, and I think that he has upside as a player in the future. But we got to remember that, I think Kenny Pickett is going to be the starting quarterback at some time this season, but it really doesn't matter who it is. Trubisky's not all that good. Pickett's a rookie, and so, if Pickens is the 4th best option in the passing game, rookie quarterbacks rarely support multiple fantasy relevant wide receivers, multiple fantasy relevant players to begin with. It's do you really think we're going to see a breakout from Pickens? Probably not. And if that's the case, I don't know. I think there's better uses for a 13th round pick. Deontay Johnson clearly ahead of him. They're going to use Najee Harris ahead of him. I think Claypool is pretty clearly ahead of him. Pat Freiermuth could even be ahead of him. I don't know. I don't love it, so I probably won't be going there. But again, I like the talent. I think he's a really good player, just not this year. Will Fuller, also seen his ADP drop 7 spots, now going to the 14th round. I don't love this drop. I understand his ADP is dropping because he hasn't been signed yet, and people are oh, he might not even play. I can't draft him. But I'd be firing away at this ADP. Again, 14th round, you're not expecting this pick to work out. Why not take someone with upside? No matter where he goes, he's going to see his ADP increase, right? A team's not going to sign him to be their 5th best player or 5th best wide receiver. So he's going to have upside. What if he goes to the Packers? What if he goes to the Ravens? There are teams where he could be fantasy relevant instantly. And he's the type of player we like because he gets targets deep downfield. He can, score touchdowns because he can catch, 40, 50-yard touchdowns. I don't know. I think there's definitely opportunities for him to shatter this ADP. And if he doesn't, he doesn't even get signed anywhere, you cut him. It's really not that big of a deal in the 14th round. Other than that, not too many massive changes. Tyler Lockett saw his ADP drop, but that makes sense. I mean, again, we don't expect Seattle to be all that great in general, and especially in the passing game. Dameon Harris saw his ADP drop. Again, not all that surprising. I guess there's no real reason for it to drop all that much, but it's not like shocking, right? I wasn't expecting his ADP to skyrocket. Nothing happened there. And there's just a lot of running backs in New England, so it makes sense. I would just say, like, if my thought is still that maybe he gets traded, well, if he gets traded, he might increase in value. So I don't know. Like, it's fine. I don't think we need to really read into his ADP dropping all that much. I think it's more that just people don't love mid-round running backs, and so sometimes they drop an ADP. So that is the latest news and ADP changes this last week. I will be back on Monday for Mock Draft Monday, then Tuesday night for the Underdog live stream. So come to that stream with any questions you have. I'll try and answer all of your questions there. We will be doing the stream this week. The Celtics are not going to be swept, and also they don't play on Tuesday. They play Monday and Wednesday. Also a reminder, talking about Underdog, the rankings are live on the site, and you can just click download and click upload. Less than 30 seconds. You can get those rankings directly into Underdog, so you don't even need a computer. You don't even need to reference rankings. They'll be automatically uploaded whenever you enter a draft. Super easy. I'm going to upload a video to the site showing exactly how to do it, but there's a step-by-step guide you'll be able to figure out. But I think this weekend I'll include like a video as well. And if you haven't signed up yet for some reason, use promo code FFA. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. That is $100 free that you can put in unless you are terrible at drafting. And if you use the rankings, you will not be. Unless you do awful, you're not going to lose, right? If they're doubling your deposit, you'd have to have a pretty bad year to not come out positive. So it's free money, especially if you use the rankings. I highly suggest you do that. And it's also just great practice, right? If you're in competitive redraft leagues, it's good practice to practice against people who are drafting right now, because everyone drafting right now is, pretty invested in fantasy. I am going to talk to them about adding more slow drafts. They only have it for $10. I love slow drafts. I think they should be adding it to the $3 and $5 range. But until they do that, if you want a slow draft, it has to be $10, but they still have normal $3 drafts. And hey, you want to do the $25 Best Ball Mania 3, try and win $1 million, you can do that. So enjoy your Sunday. We're off on Sunday. Then I'll come back for Mock Draft Monday. And my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.